All right, David, welcome on, man.
Thank you for having me.
So where do we find you now?
Currently, I am actually in Miami Beach, Florida, at my childhood home where I grew up. So I'm in the
Beautiful.
backyard, hanging with fam, and quarantining from home.
Quarantining from home. Who would have thought we'd be saying that for our conversation, man? Like, what's this been like for you in terms of even just work wise? Has it been just business as usual with your team, or has it been like a time that you could be a little more creative and uh, little different with it?
So the truth is, it's been heads down, nonstop, like intense. Not business as usual per se, because it's not a usual circumstance that we're working from home, that we're working remotely, etc. And the business of what we're doing is adapting for the projects and people that we work with. So Birthright Israel is navigating what happens in a time when currently people can't travel, and when will we be able to travel again. And for JSwipe, it's how are people navigating dating from home, and what does that look like. And so it's not usual per se, but it's definitely been a blessing, that I'm able to work from home, that we have like the tools and technology to collaborate effectively. And frankly, I kind of have been wanting to explore more, um, you know, remote work options with the team. And we introduced a year ago work from home Wednesdays, which has been really, really nice. And I found for me to be my most like focused, productive day without the, distractions. And now it's, we're flexing the muscle of work from home every day. But I think because of, a year to sort of adapt and get used to it, we were able to have a pretty seamless transition from daily coming in to daily at home.
Dude, I'm not surprised that you're finding the blessing in this, man. That's part of why we love you. And I before we dive into that and how we should look at this crisis and everything, can you give us all just a really brief kind of summary in pre JSwipe, JSwipe, where you're at now with your digital agency, Millennial, and maybe just what you're kind of excited about now in your life? Just
Oh wow, yeah, but I don't know if you want to like unpack those one by one. Pre JSwipe, JSwipe, I moved to New York. So I grew up in Miami Beach, Florida. I went to a small Jewish day school here called Hillel. I then, when I was about 15, for whatever reason, decided to apply to and go to Episcopalian prep school in DC. So I went to this at the National Cathedral, school for boys. It was a very peculiar experience, but Jewish identity definitely was, explored and new in different ways there at a young age that I didn't expect, to navigate through. I went to Babson College, which is a small entrepreneurship-focused school in Boston, where I studied entrepreneurship and marketing, and have always been in, let's call it, connecting people. At first, it started in Miami when I was 14, through events and parties where my friend Deanna, this girl that I carpooled to school with, we rented out a club on South Beach and threw parties for like our peers, so for other high school kids. And then that continued through college to be like larger, age parties for schools all around Boston, and then schools all around New England, and then up and down sort of like the East Coast. And then I eventually sort of evolved that into a marketing agent. Organizations connect with college kids. And around 2010, through some cosmic connecting of dots, tweeted at someone from this organization that was like the largest sort of agency in New York that was in the same similar space, but they were just the Goliaths in the space. I tweeted at one of the founders. He brought me down to New York, and after a conversation or two, I was on my way to move to New York. So I moved to New York in 2010. As it goes, the story is for a dream job and to meet a nice Jewish girl. I moved to the Upper West Side because I was told that that's where they all lived. And I worked at this agency called Mr. Youth for a while, which was a really, really incredible, powerful, 4 years of experience and understanding. And from there, launched about a few years later, JSwipe, and something called Millennial, which is a social media digital agency focused now primarily on Jewish organizations. And of course, JSwipe, Jewish dating platform with 1 million users around the world, lots of love, lots of wild stories from people. And that is the quick synopsis of pre background and now up to now.
Love it, man. I know there's a lot to unpack there, but like one thing that stands out to me as somebody who tries to build, knows how hard it is to build something new and build a company with all the challenges and setbacks that go into that. Like looking back, is there like a trait or a mindset or belief you had back then throughout that process till now that you feel was essential for you to be able to build? Because a lot of us have ideas, or we have passion projects, but to really see it through and bring it to success.
It's so interesting because I feel like I've just forever just followed, like surfed the flow of what felt right and true and good, and like what just felt like the next step, but not in a way that was, in the back room, planning and, writing up all the different, strategies or tactics. It was more just really feeling into like, oh, wow, like that's it. And I think for me, there's this difference between ideas, and I have a bunch of ideas that I don't, act on, and then sometimes there's like that one sort of special idea that is, it doesn't sort of surface for me as an idea, which to me I guess means something that like doesn't exist but could. It surfaces as at almost as if it already exists in just future form. Like I remember the day that like Millennial clicked. One night it was after Shabbat. I was at home in the Upper West Side. I decided to stay home and like think about life. And I was, enjoying some chillage, some besamim and some chillage. And I was like looking at domains, and I randomly just looked up like the domain Millennial, and I was like, whoa, it's available. Weird. Buy. Like I don't even know what it was going to be for. And then like almost like just like the sudden like download a couple minutes later. And I was like, oh my God, that's it. Like that is the next step. That is like the next business. And it wasn't as if that could be it. It was just like, oh, that is just so fully it, that it was, existed in full actualized form, just in future tense. And so the very, very few, it doesn't happen often, but the few times that it does, I just feel like it doesn't feel like a choice or like a leap. It just feels like oh, okay. And then like a calling forth, that I then, I guess, just like sort of lean into or give myself to. So that's probably been the through line through all the different steps or all the different, projects, has just been, trust my intuition, trust myself. And like, when you get the download or you get that calling, it's like, oh, like, okay. And then allowing yourself to move through that or to that.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. It's like for all the hustle that you did, what you see as the real success that you had was trusting your gut and listening to that calling. Because in our lives, we'll have these moments where something might call us, resonate really deeply, and to just jump on that and move with that. So we actually met at Millennial in Brooklyn a little while back. I'm not sure how far back it was. And our topic of discussion I wanted to get into with you then was about how, what we feel our generation needs to connect within the Jewish community. What is lacking in Jewish programming in our generation? And we had a great jamming session on it. And as I'm leaving, there's this pop-up tribal markers event going down that I get pulled into, this amazing experience that was beautiful. You seem to attract these like awesome energy situations going down. And that question I seem to always get into when I chat with you. What do you feel is something that really stands out to you as lacking or that could be improved in our Jewish programming for our generation, in our engagement?
I mean, it's funny because it oversimplifies the answer, but like zest or like vibes or vibiness, aliveness, right? I think that our generation, I mean, let's put it this way, we have so much access to so many things and so much opportunity of events and outlets and experiences of every, every shape and form, that we are bombarded with from all angles, at all times of the day, on all platforms, that maybe back in the day, there was less going on or less, things to choose from. And maybe more pressure from parents or something from 2 generations ago, like post-Holocaust, there was maybe some more and less maybe acceptance in other communities or in other, spaces. But in a time where, young Jews can do anything and everything, I presume they will do what feels, the most aligned with them, or what feels the most natural, to their mindset, to their, what fits the most seamlessly into either things that they do, look for, like experiences that they, would otherwise seek out. And I think that, by and large, one of the main things that's missing is that, you know, the experiences that, the programming that is offered, the experiences, touch points are oftentimes not really, the flavor or I don't know, just not really what people would otherwise be looking for. And, broadly, specifically, we could explore the topic a little bit, but the way that a friend, I think maybe a mutual acquaintance of ours, Dovi Shiner from Soho Supper Club, has this quote that he says, like, in an era where Judaism is no longer a necessity, meaning our grandparents' generation, and even maybe some of our parents' generation, it's like you weren't allowed to go to that like country club, or you weren't allowed to go to this, whatever. Like you literally had to form like JCCs and federations and other things that like it was out of necessity. So in a world that, where Judaism is no longer a necessity, it needs to be a luxury. And what he means by that is like it needs to be something that someone sees and it's like, ooh, okay, I like that draws you forth. And I think for a combination of formative developmental experiences where people were maybe pushed away, or like had, I don't know, traumatizing, like maybe Hebrew school teachers. I know I had a second grade Hebrew school teacher, Hebrew teacher, that was definitely a little traumatizing. Respect and love to her, but like that leaves me with not a good flavor. It leaves me with like a flavor. And I think if we were to tally all the flavors, from our generation, it was probably more than woos. And we need more woos than That's it. That's like in a bundle. But I mean, to go one level, deeper on that, I think the idea is, and it didn't click for me. And this is not like the one overarching like main thing. I think there's a sort of whole concert of things that, are happening and are challenges that and need to be addressed, such as the Jewish world, or what I call Big Jewish, which is like the organizations, federations, foundations, et cetera, all being run by our parents and grandparents' generations. And often, the agenda is being driven by like the donor dollars, which definitely usually are from our parents and grandparents' generations, and like their Jewish experience or their, values or their, what they're looking to do with us, or what they want from us, is often, or maybe by and large, different than maybe what we are looking for Jewishly. And so there's this like understanding gap or communication gap between what people are pushing onto us and what would be naturally fitting for us. And there's not enough investment and platforms, for our generation to really meaningfully, powerfully create the Jewish touch points, experiences, and opportunities that would be, in line with what we are, either experiencing elsewhere or looking to seek out. That's one. The other piece is this idea of like, it wasn't until I pick on them a lot, so I don't want to, it's again, everything is all the container of love. But like, if we're thinking about a college kid and it's your first week on campus, freshman year, and you're just meeting everyone, and you're just met your roommates, and you want to make friends, and you want to like maybe date, and you want whatever, and it's okay, it's Friday night, and they have an option. They can go with all of their friends to like that party thrown by that fraternity or that whatever sports team down the way, or they can go to the Shabbat dinner that your mom is probably saying, go to Shabbat dinner. But it's usually not for those of people who it's not this beautiful, but like, or it's often like a big empty white room with like sort of styrofoam plates and like somewhat, like room temp chicken, and like a rabbi that's like somewhat in touch, but like maybe not. And it's kind of like, they're never going to choose that. But if we can make that not the option, but if we can make that like the vibey, like sizzling hotness option, I don't know what that means, or it means different things for different people who have different interests, but different, flavors that are like, ooh, other than, then we'll see people choosing it more. So there's that. And it wasn't until, Burning Man, I think 4 or 5 years ago, that I went to my first ever like Shabbat at Burning Man, which just blew my mind, because it was 1,000 people from every walk of life, from every country, every religion, every language, all experiencing Shabbat together. going through the traditional Shabbat experience and flow, but through an open, universal, sort of connected, beautiful experience that I was like, whoa, like this is my flavor of Judaism. It's open to everyone. It's not exclusive. Personally, the idea of the chosen people, or like it definitely doesn't resonate. Right? If anything, we're all one. We're all humans. We're all, that doesn't, vibe with me. And this was like literally every walk of life was experiencing a beautiful Shabbat together. Then it was just vibey. It was like it was alive. That's the zest I'm talking about. It was like, it was so juicy and like goodness feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but you just really like, yes, like this is it. And so for me personally, my practice has been creating Jewish experiences or touch points that, that are, directly in line and aligned with my flavor and what I'm seeking out. But I didn't even feel that I didn't even give myself permission or realize that I had permission to do that, to meaning create a flavor that worked for me. And I think that's another big challenge. I know maybe you asked for one, but I'm giving you a couple, but I think I'm almost done. I think the last thing is that, for our generation, I feel like whether it's been youth groups or Jewish day schools or summer camps or whatever, all of the touch points we had growing up, it really felt that we were maybe presented like three flavors. It was like, you can have chocolate, you can have vanilla, maybe you can have strawberry, but I think our generation wants tutti frutti or whatever it is that they want, but that I didn't even know that I was empowered or could give myself to go and create that flavor that I want. I just was like, chocolate, not really. Vanilla, strawberry, no. So then I think by and large people are feeling, well, that's not my flavor, that's not my flavor, that's not my flavor. Okay, opting out without, knowing that within each of us has, the ability, power to create the flavor that, tastes the best for us and our friends and our community and our families. Okay, I think that for the most part is it. Yeah. Oh no, and the last one, this is a biggie, and this is like a more recent one for me, but as I've gotten back into Hasidus a bit, this is I think that one of the gravest errors, although I don't fault them because I'm sure they were dealing with a lot of things, of Jewish education of our of those who brought up our generation, was we were taught Aleph Bet, and we were taught Chumash, and we were taught like the laws, but like the essence or the spirituality that now, ironically, most of our generation is probably getting from Soul Cycle or from yoga or from every other angle besides their Jewish angle, is such a shame, because it exists in abundance within Judaism. It's just not what's most often talked about, discussed, shared, taught, learned, or experienced. And I feel that most of these people who are getting it elsewhere, if they only knew, or if they were presented, that it also, by the way, exists within Judaism. So you don't need to experience it from a dogmatic, do this, don't do this, we must this, that, but they experience it from a, this is your soul. And within your soul, you have, physicality, and you have godliness. And every action you take, you can elevate physicality to God, or you can live it like, I feel like it, for me at least, and I wasn't introduced to it until college by a wonderful gentleman named Rabbi Bleich, who is the Chabad rabbi of my neighborhood at Babson, Wellesley, etc. Like when he introduced me to Tanya, it was literally after, I guess I was 20, maybe 21. It was after 20 or 21 years of Jewish education and Jewish day school and Jewish summer and all of the things. That was the first thing that like did something where just like it like lit something up inside of like, ooh. And I think the fact that by and large is like not part of the Jewish educational system is, is a bummer, because otherwise people are getting lots of it from yoga, which is great. But I think that, if it was only presented through Jewish angles as well, I think it would be more accessible or more interesting, or at least have a different way or a different, connection point for lots of people.
Thank you for sharing that, man. You touched on so much good stuff there. And we have two reactions as a community. We can either malign and we can complain about the state of affairs, or we can level up, right? Like any business or entrepreneurship, if they're not meeting the demands of the customers, they like, okay, we got to do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of synagogues and community centers are like, why aren't they staying loyal to their membership? Why are they like, it's a lot of complaining. And we can actually use this lack of engagement to lift up our standards much higher and meet people where they're at, is what is the message that I'm getting from you, which is like, you know, when I was actually at the Coachella Music Festival, we did 3 years of a Shabbat tent there with a group. And at first I'm like, whoa, this is so different. This is so modern. And then I realized like, this is what Abraham and Sarah did. Judaism was a tent in the desert with good food and drink. Abraham was on a very high level. So he was taking people on a trippy voyage into what is this idea of this one infinite God. And it, you know, it was everything you were talking about with Burning Man. And when you look at the temple in Jerusalem and you look back to how Judaism really at its apex of ritual, it was walking barefoot, overlooking the city of Jerusalem with Levites. The whole job of these Levites, the Levim, was to play different types of exotic instruments and sing while you were going through this service of fire with the sacrifices, which is a little more controversial. But the experience of karban, sacrifice means to karov, to get close to God. So this, in place of prayer, this was this visual, powerful sensory experience with music and fire and the incense spices, and it was amazing. And you know what you're touching on with the three flavors, and we have to get more real. And one thing that hit me a lot, I guess, if I had to condense my thinking on this, is that, you know, we're pulling on both ends not strong enough. The material we're giving over is not that deep. You're talking about Tanya, right? Why did it take so long to get into the deepest mystical wisdom? So we're not going that deep. And when we're giving it over, we're not giving it over in a very opposite, a very easy, accessible, visual, powerful way. So, you know, like I just started using TikTok, right? I have all these videos I've been making, 1-minute videos, and I've been working with teenagers over the years. So I'm always at the latest, like where their attention at. You know, I'll make like a Facebook event 6 years ago. They're like, what's that? I'm like, oh, Facebook's dead. And then I realized, oh, Instagram, oh, they're on TikTok. So I'm on TikTok and no one's doing it. And I'm sharing these videos, and these young people are engaging with these 1-minute visual ideas. And it's taking, well, let's take the most real deep stuff we can and let's package it in the most accessible, modern way. Like I visit public schools and I go at lunch break with pizza or donuts and I just share life. Like, guys, don't care what people think about you. Because like when I was in high school, I cared what everybody thought about me. I was following every trend, and I talked to them real, like I would to an adult. And they vibe with it. And it's not all Jewish kids. It's probably like 60-70% Jewish, but everyone, we do. I've been bringing you'd appreciate this because you're a sound bowl practitioner. I've been bringing my sound bowls at lunch. Imagine this, 50-60 kids, lunch break. They're wild. And they're closing their eyes. We're playing the bowls, and I'm leading them through it to understand what we had just spoken about, but now to connect to it from your mind to your heart. Take this idea that you're precious, that all these people around you are not going to be around in 5 years, and really connect to the love of who you are. And they dig it. People dig realness, and we shouldn't be afraid to. Sometimes I was worried as making events. Maybe I'm getting too much Judaism, too much Hasidus, too much. And I think people really, we underestimate the power of what people are willing to get into. So, dude, I love this conversation. I think it's something that at the first thing needs to be happening, right? And one thing someone told to me, last thing with this, was that I said, who am I? You know, a few years ago, I was like, I'm young. There's plenty of big rabbis out there. He's like, who do you think is the next generation? Like, who is that person that you're looking up to? Who's that going to be pretty soon? And that's who you are. That's who I have to be. Like, we need to stop looking at it in that way, you know?
My build on that would be that for a long time, I felt that if, you know, I do my part, and then like the Jewish world will meet me in the middle or meet me halfway and like help to create these things. And I realized through a series of events, maybe it was like 3 or so years ago, that like, oh, I actually don't believe that that's going to happen anymore. Like, I don't believe in the infrastructure to be self-aware enough in the time that we need them to, or like, and early enough to be able to then take the radical steps to actually start having the meaningful conversations that will make this progress. I was like, oh shit, I think that means it's on us. And so, you know, for sure, I agree with you, but not just from a, who are we? Because we're the next ones. It's like, I actually think that it's like, not who are we? We are the ones who are going to be the ones to make access points for our, you know, peers, ourselves, our generation. And I would love the support. I would love the collaboration. I would love the teamwork of, you know, the elders, respectfully, especially because they got a lot of resources that are going to things that I think are less, you know, effective or efficient at connecting with us. But more so, it's like, but I now realize that I actually can't really like wait for that. We can't wait for that. Like, the time is now. And so, Yalla. Yeah.
Dude, I love that. I'm pumped. quarantine and all, I'm pumped to get this going. So brother, so as the founder of the best Jewish dating app, you know, and as a fellow human being who thrives on love and connection, and, you know, I think we have to discuss a little bit about love and relationships, especially at this time of social distancing. I find it to be an interesting conversation. First of all, like, I would imagine JSwipe might have a little uptick in activity. Like, where are you going to find your, you know, your significant other or someone you love? This is this is the one avenue right now. So you were ahead of your time with that one. But how do you feel this crisis has impacted dating in general? You know, do you feel people are opening up now to maybe a different kind of relationship, maybe more willing to talk a bit more beforehand? Or
I think a lot of things. One is, I feel like people were broadly confronted with the idea of how much of our time with ourselves we fill up with, others, or we fill up with either, other experiences, other events, other people, other conversations, and like what it feels like to just be with ourselves, especially for those of, us who are quarantined only by ourselves, or for, with the small amounts of people. There's a lot of time. So the first thing is not, before even dating, it's just like, how comfortable are we just being with ourselves, and what does that feel like, and what do we think about, and are we, like, how are we filling the time then with Netflix? Are we filling our time with like going in and doing the work, or are we just filling our time with sort of like peacefulness and calm, and like how are we spending that time? So I think however people are spending it, at the very least, being confronted with a lot of time on our hands and not a lot of things to do or places to go. I think that sort of started this sort of, going in, and this like, this inquiry that I think is beautiful and powerful. And
so instead of thinking of being in loneliness, think about how I can use this time to level up, and maybe even will attract somebody at the way I grow is who the people I'll end up being with anyways. So use this time as just a time to be with self and grow.
And so that's one piece. And then I think that, lots of my life coach, her name is Lauren Zander, from this group called Handel Group. Like, she has the, her main thing is, like, almost her requirement for people, who coach with her, is like a FaceTime first date, right? Before you get, offline and spend time, etc. Like, make sure that there's a vibe. And so basically, whenever I talk to people about that and share that, or, suggest that, for, up until now, I've gotten resistance, or this little bit of like, I don't know about that. Like, I feel funny asking, or I don't know. It's like, that's not so common. But now, FaceTime first dates, are like, everyone's talking about it. People have been forced to do it for the last month, if they're doing it, who knows? But like, many are. And so the opportunity to connect first, digitally, before meeting people in person, I think is going to be a muscle that will go from mostly not being, explored, to now, for a good amount of people, actually being like, some more comfort, or some more strength around that muscle, some more like openness or willingness to do that, and maybe to some even preference, of that being a first step. And I was talking, at 1 p.m. every day, my buddy Jared calls, our, like, a Facebook, calls like a text thread with FaceTime, and there's like 23 people on the thread, and it's 1 p.m. every day, and it's a quick check-in, and it's optional, obviously, if you do or don't, and it's been happening literally every day for the last 5 weeks. So like, sometimes you pop in, sometimes you're on a call, whatever it is. But we were talking to a friend of ours who was saying that, like, she actually had a really fascinating, like, dating experience. She, like, started dating someone through, over the last few weeks, via a dating app, and they've been having these like long conversations and FaceTimes. And she's like, truly, this is actually like way more my speed. Like, I love the idea of going, like, exploration, like, intellectually getting to know someone, and, really getting a feel for who someone is before you sort of jump into being together physically, literally, and, you know what I mean? And so that being, what's comfortable for many, but not often, the norm of like extensive conversations, or, before you, go there, maybe physically meeting someone, or go there maybe physically, is now something that everyone's also practicing, or at least, exploring a little bit. So I think one of the main question for me in this time of, Corona and self-quarantine, et cetera, is like, how will this shift? What will be different? Not also curious, like, what's gonna be different with the world, but with people and human behavior and comfort. Like, now, Zoom, catch up call with my, extended family, we never really did that. Like we got together on Passover, got together on Thanksgiving, and like maybe like special events or like life events, but like we didn't have weekly or monthly, like, we didn't have family Zoom calls. But now, it feels pretty great. I love seeing everyone. Like maybe there will be things that stick from this, not just in dating, but in human connection, and maybe with ourselves and with others, that actually leave an imprint and for the better. And so, I think that's those are all the things I think.
I love that about the video chat for the first date, because in religious dating and non-religious dating, it's two different perspectives, I think, on dating, and they both have, to me, their pluses, right? Religious dating has its plus in that the you make sure that your goals are aligned, that you're kind of the deeper things that you don't have to worry about a year down the line. Like, are you kind of, and I would think that's represented by the phone calls, the idea of like being on the same page intellectually, emotionally. But then you can meet somebody after 6 months of that, and the first date, within 3 minutes, you're like, oh, there's no chemistry, right? And then in the non-religious world, it's much stronger on that side. I think there's much more of like, my gut feeling is I like this person. I feel like there's a certain synergy. I'm attracted to this person. You have that side much easier, more accessible. And then sometimes the problem with getting intimate too quickly or getting excited too quickly is you find out that your goals and your values are not aligned later. So trying to find that synergy between those two paths, and maybe, that idea of, video chat, seeing if there's kind of this, you can get a little more idea of chemistry through that, not just intellectually through a phone call, but visually.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's not human in front of you, but I think I really like that idea. And everything you're saying, how it's affecting us with our families, 100%. I was thinking about an interesting thought recently about what we're looking for in other people. And is there a personality trait that you appreciate in a partner that might be overlooked? We swipe through photos, we look at who this person might be, and we want them to be nice, we want them to be kind. Everyone has different things they're looking for. I realized recently that I love a sense of wonder, like not being jaded, and not somebody to be brilliant, but to be intellectually curious, like interested by life, find things to be, not jaded by a flower, not jaded by the universe, and to be excited. Is there something maybe that people might look over that you kind of like value in other people?
I'll tell you, I don't know about people looking it over. I'll tell you like some of the things some of the values that are important to me, or some ways of being that are important to me that like maybe are not, that took me a while to get to in different ways. In no particular order. Non-judgment, meaning like I feel like they all came about through just different experiences over the last however many years. So I was like, wow, okay, learning non-judgment is one of the most important things to me, which is like other people with differences of belief, opinion, ways of being, whatever. Like I personally value in myself, like kind of like shefaing it, meaning like not really letting that affect me. Like sure, they can have different values, but like not letting that like seep in or like cause reaction within me. And I definitely value non-judgment in a partner. Like, basically, we don't even get into the story, skip the story, but non-judgment, that's a biggie. I think a very, 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 very important one to me is something that I call empowered authorship, which is the idea of being the feeling of, feeling, believing, or knowing that, within us, we have the ability to create anything of our lives. We just simply have to first, have the spark of clarity of what we want that to be, and then take action of doing so. And so, people who are there, I think there's a social psychology or principle of like internal or external locus of control. Like everything happens to me, or I am, I cause, things to happen around me. So let's say late to work, and my alarm clock went off, or like I come into work, I'm like, oh my God, so sorry, I missed the podcast because my alarm wasn't plugged in, and like it's like ultimately, or like I'm sorry, I didn't make it. Like I versus other to me, and like not just that, but also just believing in our ability to create and dream and actualize. Super, super important. Open-mindedness, I think that's your version of wonder, like open to new experiences, like growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Like I know a micro fraction of things that there is to know on the universe, and hopefully maybe over life I'll know 2 micro fractions of things, but I know that I certainly don't know all the things out there, and I am always open and willing to like up level and upgrade my operating system. And so being with a partner who's also sort of open and growth mindset versus sort of fixed, like this is how it's done, this is how I do things, and that's what, no, that's it definitely wouldn't resonate. Yeah, I think those are some good ones. I could probably go on, but unnecessary.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. And getting that clarity around that is kind of helpful, and recognizing it in other people, because there's so many traits we like, right? But kind of like zeroing in on what we love most. So you touched on shefaing. Now I know it can be verbed. So I wanted to touch into like blessings, good vibes, and during this time of a lot of doom and gloom, it could be, if we're just looking at the news all the time, and we're focusing on economic, and there's real stuff that the world's dealing with right now, physically, economically, socially, being stuck in small surroundings with even our loved ones, and also like scarcity and worry about everything. So I know you live your life by the idea of locating the blessings in our lives, and and the idea of opening ourselves up to a greater flow, or what we call in Hebrew shefa, which has a lot of Kabbalistic undertones between light and shefa. Can you just share some of your feelings during these troubling times that could maybe help us out on how we could reframe?
So I'll share basically the two, let's call it like mantras or like lenses that I try to like look and live, life through. The first being like blessing, 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 which to me means that, everything in life is a blessing. Our being here is a blessing. If you ask me, let's say I had a hard day and, I got an angry, email, or I got a text that really, made me like really not feel great. And then at the end of the day, I see you and you're like, hey, how you doing? Like, likely what I'll respond with first is like how I'm feeling in that moment, which is usually based on like what's currently sort of gripping me, which will probably be the text or the email or just the feeling as, a result of them. But if you zoom out, like Google Maps, if you macro, zoom out all the way, we're living in thousands of layers of blessing just being here. So the fact that we can see and think and smell and walk and be and feel and live and eat and like have internet and all of the unbelievable blessings that we have, that frankly anyone who's listening to this podcast or accessing it through some device, like comparatively through the macro percent of people in the world, like we are living in such a blessed experience even on the hard days. So for me, I use it as a sort of just a lens to always like ground myself in that everything is a blessing, and even our challenges that we can then like live and grow through and think through, and then overcome, and then sort of next time around where we encounter that, like be able to maneuver differently. Like everything is a blessing, so even the tough things. And so that's a really important one for me. And the next one is shefa, which is the Hebrew word for abundance. And I think to me, this comes from a powerful conversation at a 4 a.m. desert dance party 5 years ago, where I was introduced to this concept with a different word of fear and scarcity, or possibility and abundance. And the idea that everything we do and everything that enters our mind, we either instantly process it through fear and scarcity. Am I good enough? Are they out to get me? Will I do okay? Do they like me? Do I look okay? How are they going to screw me? Or possibility and abundance, which is like, I got this, we got this, let's go, it's going to be great, yalla, like the world's has my back, like come on. And throughout, I think, childhood and throughout development and throughout general life, we're conditioned to process through fear and scarcity. And so people like, if you could simply sort of build the muscle of this little lever, I think maybe it was like as a pinball, like if you could simply like just build the muscle of flipping things into possibility and abundance versus fear and scarcity, the same encounter, right? The same trigger, whatever it is, but how would you react, or what would your way of being be if you experienced that or processed it through possibility and abundance versus fear and scarcity? And if you could build that muscle and process more of life through possibility and abundance, it really powerfully reorients the way that the world shows up for you and the way that you show up for the world. And so then, that was my jam for a little while. And then I think a year or two ago, I learned that the Hebrew word for abundance is shefa. And I was like, ooh, shefa. And so for me, shefa is, again, they're connected to, it's connected to blessing, but it's different. It's this idea of like we can have, everything and anything we want. We can create anything and everything. And even in the lacking, or even in the, the hurt, like, is the blessing. It's like shefa, like, like it's to me, it's a combination. I'm sure I use it not necessarily literally in the, only the exact definition, or, translation, but to me, it's like a combination of like it's all going to be good. We're blessed, we like abundance, like, don't sweat it. Like, it's like a lens through a living with a sort of a light step, and processing with just like a lightness, and that helps me navigate, all things, including the ups and the downs.
Beautiful, man. Like the Zohar says that the face that we show heaven, that's the face that heaven shows back to us. So this idea of having that mindset and it really producing positive results is a real thing within Judaism. There are, a few differences in the law of attraction and certain ideas, but there is a lot to, if we're depending on this God who loves us, and this divine flow that's coming, that brought us to become alive, to give us the family, to give us the blessings, then for sure the other things we're going through, the same source for the difficulties must be coming for us on some level. When we wear a white t-shirt and there's a little stain on it, we're going to notice the stain, and what you're saying at the beginning about blessing is like, zoom out, see the shirt, like, notice, let's take more time to focus. It's our nature is to find the lack so we can fix it and live longer and be stronger. It's like, no, that's, it's a never ending spiral.
See the fact that, like, the shirt is like that, we're clothed, like we have the blessing of having a shirt. See the blessing of the fact that, like, some sheep probably grew up in Bod somewhere, that then had some fur that then was somehow sheared, because some people somewhere a long time ago to figure it out that if you cut and I guess weave like sheep, or I don't know, cotton, which is a plant, think like the blessing that this plant somehow grows and it looks like a little thing that then opens and there's some fuzz. But if you take the fuzz and you wind it on the spindle, like, how many things were figured out and how many lives were lived to then get us to the point that we could have the stain on our shirt.
And the stain itself came from food that you were lucky enough to have to live, you know?
Yeah, truly, it's wild.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, as a fun practice over Shabbat dinner, it's like when I'll have friends or guests and we, host Shabbats pretty regularly. And then, like, when we go through the blessings, I'll say, whatever the blessing is, like, Bray Pri Guffin. And I'm like, thank you, universe, for having us and for creating, grapes and vines. And then I think about everything that went into this grape or to this wine. So, like, and someone who figured out that if you squish grapes and let it sit in something and then somehow becomes wine. And thank you, the sun that shined on the grapes and the rain that watered the trees or the roots, and all of the things that go into the blessing that we're blessing. Because like, if you could sort of double click and then expand, or like drop down menu, expand all of the things that we're blessing when we say a blessing, it's a powerful exercise. Yeah.
100%. I was going to, funny enough, touch on the same thing. And that's what blessings are. Judaism's obsessed with blessings all day to create mindful awareness of what's going on in your life. Otherwise, we just trod through everything. We don't pick up on everything that's what it took to come our way.
Real quick, I'm going to jump in. I don't know if you poskin differently than me, but I would suggest, or I would invite a prompt for anyone listening to, at some point, potentially now or after, pause and make up a blessing. Wherever you're at, whatever you're feeling, like, make up a blessing for everything that you feel blessed for in this moment, and try to do the drop down menu. And if you feel called, you could share it with us, or, but I would be so curious. But either way, it's not even about that. It's about, going through the fun that I find, and maybe you will too, in exploring the full sort of like DNA helix of all of the things that go into the things in our lives that we are, blessed with. Yeah.
I love that. It's like everyone can think about one thing that if they could write a blessing for, that they would like to bring into their life to remind themselves of how blessed they are with that thing. What would that one thing be?
And it could go, and it could be many things. It could be multiple things. Like, I feel blessed right now for being able to somehow have randomly cosmically connected with you and having this conversation. I feel blessed for the opportunity to work from home during Corona. I feel blessed for the time that I'm getting to spend with my dad, because I'm home in Miami and I'm living in my childhood bedroom, and I'm spending like more concentrated time, teaching him, Netflix and technology and hanging, and, than I've had in maybe years. And I feel blessed for all of the things that we feel blessed for in the moment. Or take one thing, like, and then it go through sort of the existence, I don't know, chain of all of the things that got to that chain. So if it's wine, there's wine. But then to get the wine, there's the trucks that shipped it here, the bottles, whoever created glass. There's someone, if we want to go skip way back, who figured out grapes to squish to juice to, I guess, fermentation to, so is it bacteria? Thank you, bacteria, and fermentation. There's so many things in each little detail of what we, that I think it's actually a really fun exercise. Yeah.
I love that. I really love that. And just to close off bracha and shefa, the word for blessing in Hebrew,
Real quick.
Yeah.
I don't think we can close off bracha and shefa because it is inherently abundance, but to sort of come full circle on bracha and shefa. So.
Duly noted, duly corrected. Blessing in Hebrew, bracha, is from the word brecha. Brecha is like a pool of water. It's a collection of flow of what's coming down, like a pool in Hebrew. If you go to Israel, is a brecha. Or when Abraham made Eliezer had the camels of Abraham, lowered them to drink water. It says the word baruch, he lowered the camels. And the idea is like bracha and shefa go together. Through blessing and through being thankful for it, you can draw down that shefa. You create that vessel for that blessing to come in. So we got to keep up the brachas and shefas going strong. Something that I think you embody, you're really into, is you mentioned earlier, is vibe. And I was recently at a really beautiful wedding north of Los Angeles, at a friend's wedding, and I noticed there was like roses on every table. It was a stunning room, and I really appreciated the aesthetic of that room. So I turned to this guy next to me and I said, it's beautiful how they put this in and made the aesthetic of the room. And he said, who else cares about the beauty of aesthetics? God. And he said, look at the world around you. Could have been one color, it could have been one scent, it could have been, clearly God appreciates beauty, the aesthetic of the world that we're in, the vibe, the sensory experience. So, and when I went to your office, I see your Shabbats you post on Insta, like there's clearly like an intention that you as the host feels important to, like, I guess, set that tone. So my question would be, how important, first of all, do you feel vibe and intention is for an event? And how would you define good vibe? What to you means that there's like a good vibe in this place? Can you define it even? Or is there something that you feel would be like good vibes?
I think inherently it is like taste, like there's, in the sense that we all have different palates, right? And so what might feel vibey to me is maybe, or certainly different than what might be precisely vibey to you, to my dad, to, some, I don't know, anyone and everyone. So the first thing I'd say is I think it's all inherently, personal. But for sure, to me, and before I presume what's important for events, I'll share what's important for me. It's when I have a Shabbat or host a Shabbat, I'm not thinking about it as a dinner, right? Or as a Shabbat dinner. I'm thinking about it as an experience, the entire piece of the experience. And for me, it's maybe, like an OCD level of like wanting to make sure as a perfectionist, like I want to make sure everything feels and activates something within me. And then what I think I do through either spatial sort of design or through experience or event design is I like go through life and I collecting like ideas for all of the things that awaken this vibrance within me, whether it's fire, love fire, candles, small, in fact, specifically, but also all, but like split level candles. Like, I don't know what it is, but when I see split level candles, feel a vibrance. And so for me, like, okay, candles, boom, drag and drop, woof, Shabbat. Okay. Then it's like, for me, I went to Mexico and I was in, this beach town. I found like this really vibey, like setup in the cushions and the rug. And I was like, ooh, okay. So then I like dragged and dropped some of that into my experience for Shabbat. And then I went to Morocco last year for two dear friends' wedding. And like, I found out that that's actually my Mecca of vibe. Like I just have literally everything there and I had a whole experience there. Like, it was, I'd say it was a spiritual experience just being in the Medina, like their market there and all the things, but like, okay, lanterns and rugs and poofs and like, and so for me, it's really just collecting the sparks. And then when I have an experience like a Shabbat experience or whatever, or an office space or whatever, it's like in my artfully placing them all like in the perfect place. And then how does that, what is that place or what is the perfect place? It's then just an energetic feeling. I can't explain it, but it's like when I get plants or when I look at plants and I love plants and my, room in New York, or my like apartment is just as many plants as can literally fit. And right now I'm kind of maxed, but I'll always try to find maybe a little space. But it's more like I'll go to the plant store and I'll just feel like, first it's just, what am I drawn to? And then, okay, I'm drawn to this type of plant. Okay, then I just feel out the energy in the different plants, and I'll put it in my apartment, and like where in my, it just it feels good there. That's the space. And then that's where that lives. And so I think that for me, how important is vibe? For me, it's, very important. I feel like, because vibe to me is energy, and energy is how I live my life. It's what I'm drawn to, or, averse to. It's what I'm, it makes me feel good, or makes me feel, or just doesn't make me feel. And if I have an opportunity to have friends over for Shabbat, I want to make sure that I'm able to help, create an experience or an environment that helps them, feel all of the feels in all of the ways that, that activate me, and presenting or sharing that as, an offering to potentially, some of those would overlap with things that activate things within them. And so that, is the way that I guess I think about it. And then I guess maybe this is what you're getting at, but I think by and large, like so many Jewish experiences or events or things, like, unfortunately, they're so focused on like maybe the goal. What's the goal? We want people to donate. Okay. If we want people to donate, what should we do? We have a dinner, and then, okay, well, we need a dinner. We need to get a caterer, and they get a caterer, and then they get like a space maybe. And then you get there, and it's like what it feels like. It feels like some food in a space. But everything, like for me, intentional design or intentional experience design or energetic design is for me everything. And it might not be that way for other people, and it might have like a varying level of how much people appreciate it. Some people maybe appreciate it more. Some people maybe realize it less. But I think it's a huge opportunity for Jewish organizations or practitioners or those who create touch points between, essence or spirituality or, whatever Jewish experience, and either consumers or users, or basically us, people who go to those things, to really, think through all of the various elements of vibe and space, which are all of the senses: scent, smell, or like sound, visual, etc. And fire. Fire always changes the energy of a space every time. Also plants. Plants also change the environment and energy in a space always.
Just don't put the two together. Don't light the plants on fire and you're good.
Unless it's bonfire, when you can light some wood, and then
True.
that's also a blessing. Yeah.
True. So it's almost like the body and the soul of the event. We're very good. You can make a beautiful table and make the body of the event nice, but like when someone puts in that intention and that effort, you feel like this is a heightened event. Like this is something, you feel that energy of the host, and that this is something to also invest your energy in, because it's clearly been put into this experience, and that can be felt across. So first of all, David, I want to thank you so much for being open and sharing a lot of your deeper thoughts and feelings on a variety of subjects. I think kind of a cool way to wrap up with a question. During this time, it's a unique time. It's a time that can be, we touched on Netflix. It can be, we got Quibi coming out now. I was actually almost on a show on Quibi, I'll tell you about later, that they took out the spiritual component about haunted homes. There's a show about haunted homes. I got approached to be the rabbi to go on, I think it was Charles Manson's home, and add good energy to it. I would have asked your advice on how to get Shefa. Whole nother story for another time. But there's a time of streaming shows, but it's also a time where we can maybe reset, and we can start looking at our lives. And I feel like you do a great job of trying to build the life that you want, which seems very simple in words, but a lot of us just naturally flow with whatever we're doing. We might desire better friendships, better community, maybe a new business, new hobbies, new experiences, new travel, but we just don't do it. We kind of just flow. And, how do you think we can cultivate that ability to, and you touched on it a bit earlier about feeling that calling, but to step into our purpose, step into our passions, and just really go after what we want?
To me, there's two pieces. One of them is just a very simple idea of resistance versus flow, right? Whether it's a decision is, should I, do this or that, go to this or that, or stay home? Should I, try to do this new project, or should I try to, work on this new client, or should I try to work on this new relationship? it like really just simply feel into your, like tap in to are you facing resistance, or is it just feeling like easy flow, or like, what is it, lazy river flowing, like it's just going, like the energy of the universe is just pulling you there? Or you're facing all these things that are coming up, stumbling blocks or challenges or hard conversations, and like almost like you're walking through like quicksand, or like, and like resistance or flow. So for me, the first thing is to give yourself permission to, maybe you could first start by just, like bringing awareness to resistance versus flow in life and where it's showing up in each, of those ways. And then maybe going with it, like allow yourself to go with where, like, if something like, I remember, I don't remember the specifics, but like if there's projects or people for me that it's like, oh wow, there's just a lot of resistance there. Like I'm like, I've allowed myself over the last, year or two, three, to like, okay, like read that as a sign, as a tell for like, okay, that's a lot of resistance. And then, oh, this is, I'm just feeling the flow and going with it. So that's the first thing, because like, it's almost like the universe's barometer, for you, or for me, is like, is it flowing? Does it feel like flow, or am I feeling resistance? And then the next piece I would say is 3 steps. It's the idea of like, first, believe that we can, like belief, like believe that, and it's not even, it's almost, belief implies like a maybe not, but let's either a knowing, that we can create anything and everything in and of our lives and for our lives in the world, or if maybe knowing is like level 101, 202, or like, I don't know, like maybe that's intermediate level, but like the beginning of the journey is the believing that we can create everything and anything in our lives, like believing that we are deserving of anything and everything that we dream. And then from the belief, step 1, like believing that we can, or knowing that we can, into clarity, what is it that I want to create, into action, like being clear on what it is we want to create, and then just taking action and actualizing it. And I'll share, maybe we close with the idea that I have a friend named Stefan who has a project called the Dreamery, or 8 billion dreams. And his goal is to get as many people around the world, which apparently at some point in 2020 something is going to be 8 billion people, to declare their dream. And he goes around and he has this, gratitude bus, and he has these index cards that he shares with people that say, declare your dream. And people write what their dream is. And I went with him one day, and we were asking people, like random people on the street, what their dream was, and asking them to declare their dream. And what was so unbelievably striking to me, and really, really just like left a very deep and lasting, impression and sort of calling for me, was that the most, and I'm talking like 9 out of 10, the most frequently response was, so what's your dream? Was, oof, that's a hard question. I don't know. And therefore, in the world of empowered authorship, where I believe that we are able to create anything in our lives, and the believing and the knowing in our innate ability to do that and to have that, and that it's, within reach, we just must believe, clarity, and actualize. If we don't know what it is, what the dream is, what the dreams are, what we want to do or create or any experience, if we don't have clarity, then it's not ever going to be top of mind, because we don't know what it is. And then therefore, if we're going through most of our day on either autopilot, or like, let's say, 20% of cognitive thought, and everything else is sort of just happening, then it's never going to be actualized, because it's not even, it's subsurface, if it exists. Versus if something is top of mind, that's what I mean by clarity. And it's like, oh, I know that this is a project I want to make happen. And it's like on your, I don't know, on your mirror. And so you see it every day, and it's, you have time, you set time, if it's top of mind. And you then bring maybe the quote, there's a quote like, where energy goes or flows, like something goes. Like the more the more energy and awareness we bring to something, we give power to that thing, and it'll start to breathe the life of its own as we breathe life into it. Biblical footnote. That's only possible if we have it top of mind. So maybe the last prompt that I'll leave you with, or that we can leave our listeners with, is, what is a dream of yours? It could be anything. It could literally be anything. Just so you can have it top of mind.
Listen, David, I want to thank you again for coming on. And, I've been reading Tanakh lately about the prophets and the writings, and David was just a shepherd who all of a sudden Samuel comes in, looks at all the brothers, and he says, "I'm not feeling it. There's someone else." And father says, "Oh, there's another son out there in the field." They bring him in, and he anoints him as king. He had no plan for that to happen. And in life, it seems like each of us are anointed for different callings, and you've been chosen for important mission. God says it's harder for me to make matches than splitting the sea. So that's one aspect of incredible things you're up to. And I want to bless you with all your other endeavors, and with that endeavor to not get, don't get too exasperated by the inertia that might exist in the community, to really know that have been chosen to make real differences in the world. And may God bless you to have happiness and clarity throughout this life journey, and only love in your life, man.
Amen, amen, amen. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.